真冬さんってどんな服着てたっけ？僕自分以外に興味ないからよく覚えてないけど。
Hey everybody, welcome to another lesson of Learn Japanese with Anime. Today we're going to go over another anime line of the day, and this time around our line is going to be coming from the show Blend S. So as you just heard in the original Japanese form, our line that we're going to be covering today is going to be I'm not interested in anyone other than myself, so I don't really remember. Boku jibun igai ni kyoumiないからよく覚えてないけど. So as you can probably tell from the line itself and from the clip we showed where we basically showed the line that was spoken before this as well, this line needs some context to it. You can't just say it out of nowhere and say, oh hey, I don't really have any interest in anyone other than myself, so I can't really remember. So in the episode of Blend S that we took this line from, the context is basically the speaker is trying to remember what kind of fashion sense the person he's thinking of has, but since he doesn't have any interest other than himself, he can't seem to remember. So you're gonna need some kind of context like that in order to be able to recite this line if you're narcissistic enough to recite this line at all in real life. So that's just a little thing to note there. So without further ado now, let's actually jump into the Japanese of this and break it down and analyze this narcissism right here. So first up, we'll see this line starts with the word boku, which means I. It's commonly used by male speakers, so you can pretty much assume that the person talking here is a male speaker. We're not using a particle such as wa or ga after boku just because this is a casual sentence, it seems. So right after that, we just come in with the jibun, which means oneself or yourself. So right now what we're going to do is just going to go over some quick vocabulary words, so it's an easier process of analyzing the line when we do. So first up, our first vocabulary word is jibun, which means oneself or yourself. Next up we have igai, which means with the exception of, basically, or beyond. Third we have kyoumi, which means interest. And last but not least we have the verb oboeru, which means to remember or to memorize, basically. We're using jibun here with igai, so basically since igai, our second vocabulary word that we covered, means with the exception of, jibun igai is going to be with the exception of myself, or with the exception of me. We have the particle ni following igai just because that's the particle that's used with it. Next up coming in is our third vocabulary word kyoumi, which means interest. Right after kyoumi we have the word nai, and this is kind of a casual version of the negative ga aru pattern, which means to have. So since it's the negative form, it means not to have, and we're just kind of dropping the use of the particle there because this is a pretty casual sentence. So far we have boku jibun igai ni kyoumi nai, and this is basically going to translate to this key component here, or the essence of our line. I don't have interest in anything other than myself. So yeah, basically you could say this line without context. You could just say it out of nowhere if you want people to think that you're a haughty person. The rest of the sentence here is kind of just contextual. It's referring to the fact that the character / the speaker here is trying to remember something. So let's just cover that. We have the conjunction kara because that's going to mean because. So because I don't have any interest in anyone other than myself. Yoku oboete nai. Yoku is the adverb form of the word i, which means good. So yoku will mean basically well, to do something goodly or to do something well. The thing that we're doing well or goodly is the verb, our fourth vocabulary term here, oboeru, which means to remember. So remember well, yoku oboete. And here we have oboeru in its te form here because we're using it with the grammar pattern that is the te form of a verb plus basically the helping verb, I guess you would call it, iru, to mean is doing that verb. However, once again, we're conjugating things into a negative form. It's a pretty negative sentence, I suppose. So iru turns into nai. So oboete nai means can't remember, don't remember, am not remembering. And last but not least, at the end of this line, we have the word kedo, which is kind of just this softener or something in our translation into English. We don't necessarily turn that into but because that's kind of the literal translation, but we kind of just turn that into basically the ... because it's expressing kind of hesitancy. So altogether, once again, boku jibun igai ni kyoumi nai kara yoku覚えてないけど. This is going to translate into English as something along the lines of I'm not interested in anyone other than myself, so I don't really remember.
真冬さんってどんな服着てたっけ？僕自分以外に興味ないからよく覚えてないけど。
And yeah, that's pretty much the whole line right there. It's pretty simple, and not to mention the fact that the second half of it was contextual. It was dependent on the conversation that this line revolves around. So the meat of the thing that we were trying to really get at is the meaning of I'm not interested in anyone other than myself, which was that first part. Boku jibun igai ni kyoumi nai. And of course you can replace boku with something else if you're saying this line and you're not a male speaker, if you want to say this line at all. But even if you don't, at least you know what it means now. So real quick, let's just go over the grammar patterns that we covered with this line, because even if we never use this line, which means we didn't really learn anything useful, we'll still make it so that we learn something useful by reviewing the grammar patterns that we learned from this line. So we have basically we have the ga-aru grammar pattern, which is pretty typical, pretty easy. It's the existential form. Basically you're saying something is there or you have something. So ga-aru, in this case we drop the ga because it's a casual sentence, a really casual sentence. Then we turn the aru into the negative form, nai, because we're saying don't have something. So the thing that we don't have in this line is kyoumi, which means of course interest. So I don't have interest. And then secondly is pretty much the last actual grammar pattern. It's the te form of the verb plus the verb iru to mean is doing something, ongoing action basically. But once again, in this line we use negative form, so I'm not doing something. And the verb that we're using with that is oboeru. So oboete.
Alright, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Anime Line of the Day. Remember, if there were grammar patterns mentioned for this line, they'll be mentioned in the description or the pinned comment below with links to the individual lessons on them. You can also probably find them in the playlist of our complete grammar video series shown on the screen right here alongside our anime playlist. And last but not least, don't forget to try to translate the bonus line we provided. Leave your translation in a comment below. Check out our Patreon, like the video, and subscribe. With all that said and done, see you next time.